Hello there.
Hello.
How are you? It is so good to be with you tonight on I Put On Pants for This.
Thank you for coming and cheers.
Yes, indeed. My name is Jennifer Childs. I am the producing artistic director of 1812 Productions.
And I'm Scott Greer, and you're welcome.
Yes. And as always, we would usually be gathering in the theater at this time, but we are not able to do that, so we figured we'd gather around our dining room table and talk about comedy. And
First things first, what are you drinking?
I am drinking just some Prosecco. It's lovely. It was a hot day today, so Prosecco felt nice. Yeah.
I am drinking a brand new cocktail that I've just made up. It's called the Governor's Reopening Plan. The top layer is red currant liqueur. The middle layer is yellow Galliano. The bottom layer is green creme de menthe. But you aren't even allowed to consider, what is happening over there? You're not even allowed to consider opening it, drinking it until May 25th.
This is what happens when jokes get interrupted.
Yeah, this is what happens. This is the death of timing.
This is the death of timing.
We're just going to now just stop talking for the next 40 minutes and you just have to stare at us like this.
That's pretty good. Okay. So Scott, as always, is rocking his 1812 production t-shirt.
This time it's clean.
Ooh. And I am wearing another vintage 1812 t-shirt that says, Anne and the Devil went to the center of the universe. Or went to the, I'm sorry.
Can you read yourself? Anne and the Devil went to the center of the universe. And all I got
was this lousy t-shirt. And it is a t-shirt from a production of ours called Daughters of Genius.
First 1812 show that had people flying in it.
That's right.
Only 1812 show that had people flying in it.
Well, that's because you were not in it, my dear.
Wow.
All right, I'm going to...
You know this is live that people are watching.
This is quarantine.
That's
okay. That's what quarantine does to a person. But, and part of the reason that I'm wearing it today is that it featured both David Howie and Leonard Haas, who were two members of a show that we did, or a special event we did a couple years ago called An Evening Without the Brits, which was a celebration of British humor, which is what we are looking at tonight. And I'm super excited because the other two members of An Evening Without the Brits are our guest stars tonight.
We have guests!
We have guests! Okay, we have a couple of announcements before we get to the guests. First of all, save the date, mark it in your calendar, Monday, June 8th at 7 o'clock. We are going to be doing an online Event to Do Schmancy, our gala fundraiser. It will be a pay what you choose event. It is going to be so much fun. The lineup for who's going to be there is the who's who of who's and who's. But it's going to be a great time. So
live music.
Live music.
Many things.
We'll be on the red carpet. It's going to be great.
Yep.
But more information is coming out about that on Monday from us, but just make sure you circle that date in your calendar because we're going to be putting on Event to Do Schmancy Pants. So the other thing is we're still doing our stuck at home, stay at home quarantine challenge where you remake famous photos of comedy scenes with you and the people you're stuck with. So please continue to submit those. We're having a really great time. And if you haven't checked them out, you can see them on our Facebook page or on our website. And now, without further ado, I'm super excited to invite some guests into the room. I'm so sick of looking at the same people at the dining room table.
This is a lot of just airing of quarantine grievance that we were not. All right.
I'm sorry. All right.
Yes.
Well, first of all, the first person that I want to welcome to our table, to the screen, is Mr. Daniel Frederick. Give it up, a virtual round of applause for Daniel Frederick as he comes and joins us. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I am fine.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking, this is a bijou. It is equal parts gin, sweet vermouth, and green chartreuse.
Yum.
Yeah, and orange bitters. It's really good, and all the components in it are alcohol.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I also happen to know that you ordered 30 beers to your home.
Who told you that?
Our beer
Yes.
company.
Well, and Daniel, we are so glad you're here. Audiences may remember Daniel from The Shoplifters and also from An Evening Without the Brits. And he is here joining us from his home in Manhattan. We're also
Where in Manhattan are you?
Washington Heights.
Ooh. Tell Lin-Manuel Miranda we say hello.
It's been a couple months since I've seen him, but we are in the titular heights.
Yeah, yes, you are.
Most definitely. So also, I want to bring to the screen our second guest of the night, the one, the only, the incomparable Tony Lawton.
Never heard of him. Jesus.
Can you guys see me all right?
Oh.
This is going well. This is going very well. Hello, Tony Lawton. How are you?
No, I'm fine.
Quarantine has just turned you into a surrealist. Like, you're just full-time Salvador Dali now.
It's funny that you mentioned In the Heights. My son goes to Cinnamints in high school, and if all had gone as planned this spring, they would have done In the Heights, and my son would have played a Dominican.
I'm going to
it's not like there are any students of color at that school. So,
well, perhaps that one's for the best.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm kind of relieved I don't have to see it, but I would have paid $400 to see it. Actually.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I want to get to. We have a lot of material to get to, so I'm going to be the little nerd girl who gets us going.
Please do.
But tonight we are going to be the three of us are going to be talking. The four of us, rather. I'm sorry.
Quarantine has been very hard for her. This is a lot.
I'm sorry. Tonight we are going to be talking about British humor from the 60s to the 80s, specifically the British comedy that came out of Oxford and Cambridge. And the Oxford had the Oxford Review, and Cambridge had the Cambridge Footlighters, and they were sort of kind of like Harvard's Hasty Pudding, or the Mask and Wig over at UPenn. Mostly all boys until later on, and we'll get to that. And they would. But it's kind of astonishing because the folks who came out of those two programs read sort of like a who's who list of British.
We want to talk real quick about how we got into British humor, or do we not have time?
Well, let's list these names and then we'll talk about that.
Perfect.
Because so from Cambridge, we had John Cleese, Eric Idle, Graham Chapman, Peter Cook, David Frost, Hugh Laurie, Stephen Fry, Tony Slattery, and John Oliver, among many, many others. And Oxford had
Rowan Atkinson, Dudley Moore, Michael Bennett, Alan Bennett. Michael Bennett, not a person. Yes, he is a person, but he's not an Oxford person. Michael Palin, Terry Jones.
And fun fact, playwright Michael Frayn, who wrote Noises Off, and Peter Schaefer, who wrote Amadeus, were also Cambridge Footlights members, as was Charles Mountbatten Windsor, Prince of the United Kingdom royal family, and that author known for his hilarity, Salman Rushdie. So,
Hilarious.
So I was interested about how you all got into British humor, or if you did, or if you just did it because you were paid.
Tony, you want to go first?
Oh, okay. Well, it was kind of, I was putting on the Do Not Disturb on my computer. It was a sort of a rite of passage in my house. I come from a household with 4 boys, and the oldest watched Monty Python's Flying Circus. Flying Circus and Holy Grail, and the rest of us were not allowed. We were too young, so it was something to aspire to. So I was 12, probably first time I saw Holy Grail, and I had never in my life laughed that hard up until that point, and I laughed hard.
Is there a specific thing that from Holy Grail?
Oh, I think the Frenchman on top of the wall. This is back in the day of VHS, so we would rewind and watch it over and over and over, and
the English Kniggets.
We would injure ourselves. We would laugh so hard. It altered the course of my life.
Wow.
Tony, you know you can still rewind other things.
How do you do that?
Anything. I'll come over and show you.
How about you?
Since the demise of VHS, I've just had to watch everything once. I thought.
Ooh, that's funny.
Yes. How about you, Daniel?
Same. I think probably most people, 9 out of 10 doctors agree that Holy Grail is kind of the gateway drug, for sure. And stuff like the film of Cold Comfort Farm and Hugh Laurie and Stephen Fry's Jeeves and Wooster series. And then I started reading those P.G. Wodehouse books, and P.G. Wodehouse is a comic genius. And so that was kind of what got me started on it. And then there was a brief period of time where Flying Circus was on Netflix, and I was just plowing through all that. So I've been consuming it, and I just remember watching Holy Grail and feeling like that vein of absurdism was so mind blowing. I'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah, for me it was Holy Grail, obviously. My parents had watched Flying Circus, but I was a little too young. My dad took me to, there was a rep house in Atlanta that was playing Holy Grail, and I saw it in the theater when I was for a second run at a rep house when I was like 11. And the Black Knight scene where King Arthur is hacking off the limbs of this, and it just blew my mind apart that it is an extremely gory scene where he's hacking the limbs off of this person and blood is squirting out, and you are laughing hysterically at the absurdity of this guy just not giving up and it's only a flesh wound. I mean, only a flesh wound was like a catchphrase, and among my friends in 6th grade, I just
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to be doing some Python sketches as well as some other British humor sketches.
What about you? You didn't say.
Oh, I didn't say? I think I actually came to it a little bit later. I came to it in the 80s. I was like the young ones, Rowan Atkinson, Fry and Laurie, but there was a whole kind of like subculture of British humor. There was something called the, I'm not going to remember the name of it. All of the guys, Adrian Edmondson and Rick Mile and all the guys from the young ones did like British comic strip, and they were just these absurd sketches. Wow. So that's where I came. But I'm sorry to move us forward from this, please. But we want people to get to their dinners, and we have so much fabulous stuff to do. We are going to let these two people retire to the green room while we talk a little history, and we will bring them back later to talk about, to do these sketches. And Lily Greer, who is our in-house producer. Yes, Lily.
So Margaret wanted to know why a lot of people found Benny Hill funny.
That's a
good question.
It's a great question. We have changed our medium a little bit, and we're slipping down, and this is not your problem.
So Benny Hill, for those who don't know, I don't know. So Margaret Spencer has asked, why did people find Benny Hill funny? I have to say, I first started watching Benny Hill, he was on late, and I remember seeing him when I was babysitting, because I never saw him. I was never allowed to stay up that late at home or something like that. And I don't know, there was something just ludicrous about it and downright silly. It was very different than the comedy that we're going to be talking about, but I take it from Margaret's comment that she did not find Benny Hill funny. So.
Maybe because I was, around a 10 or 11-year-old boy, but I found Benny Hill hilarious. And it is, you watch it now, it's terribly problematic, and it's all very basic humor. I related to it because it was like a cartoon. Yeah. And there was always, he could smack that little bald man on the head, and they would cut out all the sound except for the and yakky sax, sweaty, and the sort of cartoon nature of it was just limbically funny to me.
But from the ridiculous to the sublime, we are going to move from Benny Hill to talk about some of these Oxford and Cambridge comics, or Oxbridge comics as they became known. And what's interesting is one of the things that they would do in these college circuits is, so this group would put together a sketch show. And they would tour around to other universities in England, and then they would inevitably go up to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival to do a set there. And in 1960, the man who ran the the Edinburgh Fringe Festival had this idea about let's take the best from Oxford, which is Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, and let's take the best from Cambridge, which is Dudley Moore and Alan Bennett were from Oxford. Let's take the best from Cambridge, Jonathan Miller and Peter Cook, and let's put them together to create this amazing sketch show that will go not just to the Fringe, but beyond the Fringe. And obviously, Beyond the Fringe with Peter Cook, Dudley Moore, Jonathan Miller, and Alan Bennett went on to play on the West End, on Broadway, and is kind of iconic 1960s British comedy. And so we're going to do a couple of pieces from Beyond the Fringe. Scott's going to start us out with something called, a monologue called Sitting on the Bench.
By Peter Cook.
By Peter Cook.
Yes, I could have been a judge, but I never read the Latin. Never read the Latin for judging. I just never read sufficient of it to get through the rigorous judging exams. They're noted for their rigor. People come staggering out saying, my God, what a rigorous exam. And so I became a miner instead, coal miner. I managed to get through the mining exams. They're not very rigorous. They only ask you one question. They say, who are you? I got 75% on that. Of course, it's quite interesting work, holding up lumps of coal all day. It's quite interesting because the coal was made in a very unusual way. You see, God blew all the trees down. He didn't just say, let's have some coal, as he could have done. No, he had all the right contacts. No, he just got this great wind going, you see, and he blew all the trees down. And then, over a period of 3 million years, he changed it into coal, gradually. Over a period of 3 million years. So it wasn't noticeable to the passerby. It was all part of the scheme. But people then at the time did not see it that way. The people under the trees did not say, hurrah, coal in 3 million years. No, they said, oh dear, trees falling on us. That's the last thing we want. I am very interested in the universe. I'm specializing in the universe and all that surrounds it. I'm studying Nesbitt's book, The Universe and All That Surrounds It, an Introduction. He tackles the subject boldly. He goes from the beginning of time right through to the present day, and he says that the earth is spinning into the sun and we will all be burnt to death. But he ends on a note of hope. He says, I hope this will not happen. But there's not a lot of interest in this and down the mind. No, the trouble is the people. And I'm not saying that we've got a lot of riffraff down the mine. I am not saying that. I'm just saying we had a lot of riffraff down my mine. Very boring conversationalists. Extremely boring. All they talk about is what goes on down the mine. Extremely boring. If you were searching for a word to describe the conversations that go on down the mine, boring would leap to your lips. Oh God, they're very boring. If you ever want to hear things like, hello, found a bit of coal. Have you really? Yes, no doubt about it. This black substance is coal, all right. Jolly good, the very thing we're looking for. It's not enough to keep the mind alive, is it? Whoops! Did you notice when I suddenly went, whoops? It's an impediment I got from being down the mine. Because one day I was walking along in the dark when I come across the body of a dead pit pony. Whoops! I said in surprise. And ever since then, I've been going, whoops! And that's another reason I couldn't be a judge. Because I might have been up there, all regal, sentencing away. I sentence you to whoops! And you see, the trouble is, under English law, that would have to stand.
I love that one. That was one of my favorites.
So fun.
It was one of my favorites. If you were just joining us,
That one too, if you listen, like there's so many different versions. He clearly riffed in the character.
No, absolutely.
It's really fun.
Which is one of the things actually that I love is to listen to some of these routines and to recognize that they were constantly refining and constantly redoing and finding the center of them. If you are just joining us, we are talking tonight about British humor, and Scott was just doing something by Peter Cook from Beyond the Fringe, and someone did ask what we were drinking. I am drinking Prosecco, and Scott is drinking a gin and tonic.
It's always a gin.
It's always a gin and tonic, but this year he's called it Governor's Orders, and you can rewind and watch.
It's a different drink every time, but it's a gin and tonic.
It's a gin and tonic. So we're going to continue with more from Beyond the Fringe, and what was interesting too is they did a number of these monologues, and a lot of them satirized sort of higher class people or establishment types like Anglican church pastors. And so we're going to ask Daniel to come back on stage with us. And Daniel is going to do a piece. Hello, Daniel's going to do another piece from Beyond the Fringe called Take a Pew. So Scott, get us out of here.
I read to you the 29th verse of the 14th chapter of the book of Genesis. But my brother Esau is an hairy man, but I am a smooth man. But my brother Esau is an hairy man, but I am a smooth man. Now perhaps I can paraphrase that, saying the same thing but in a different way, by quoting you some words from that grand Old Testament prophet Ezra. Ezra 4:16, he said unto me, What seest thou? And I said, Lo, I see the children of Levi, numbering 673, but I see the children of Asgad, numbering 1,474. I see the children of Levi, numbering 673, but I see the children of Asgad, numbering 1,474. There come times in the lives of each and every one of us when we turn aside from our fellows and seek the solitude and tranquility of our own firesides, when we put up our feet and put on our slippers and we sit and we stare into the fire. I wonder at such times whether your thoughts turn, as mine do, to those words I've just read you now. They are very unique words, very special words, words that express, as so very few words do, that sense of lack that lies at the very heart of modern existence, that I don't quite know what it is, but I'm not quite getting everything out of life I should be getting sort of feeling. They are more than this, you know, these words. They are much, much, much more, because they are, in a very real sense, a challenge to each and every one of us here tonight. What is that challenge? The other evening I was ferrying through Piccadilly Circus when my eye was caught by a rather personable young lady who was sitting there on a bench. And as I walked by, she called out to me, she said, "Oh, Padre, have you got the time?" I had the time, and I stopped and told it to her, and she seemed most anxious to chat, so I sat down beside her on the bench. In the course of conversation, I laid my hand upon her knee, and suddenly she said, "Oh, Padre, what's the little game?" "Oh, Padre, what's the little game?" I was very grateful for that young lady, you see. She put me in mind of the kind of question I thought I ought to be asking you here tonight. What's the little game? What is this whole vivid, exciting little game that we call life about? Very many years ago, when I was about as old as some of you are now, I went mountain climbing in Scotland with a friend of mine, and there was this mountain, you see. We decided to climb it. So very early one morning we arose and began to climb. All day we climbed up and up and up, higher and higher and higher, until the valley lay very small below us, and the mists of the evening began to come down and the sun to set. And when we reached the summit, we sat down to watch this magnificent sight of the sun going down behind the mountains. And as we watched, my friend very suddenly and violently vomited. And some of us think life's a bit like that, don't we? But it isn't. Life, you know, it's rather like opening a tin of sardines. We are all of us looking for the key. And some of us think we found the key, don't they? No, we think we found the key. We roll back the lid of the sardine tin of life. We reveal the sardines, the riches of life therein. We get them out, we enjoy them, but you know, there's always a little piece in the corner you can't get out. I wonder, is there a piece in the corner of your life? I know there is in mine. And so now I draw to a close. I want you, when you go out into the world in times of trouble and sorrow and hopelessness and despair amid the hurly-burly of modern life, if ever you're tempted to say, stuff this for a lark, I want you then to remember, for comfort, the words of my first text to you tonight. But my brother Esau is an hairy man, but I am a smooth man.
You're a smooth man indeed. A smooth man indeed.
That is very silly.
Oh, good. It's, I don't know, your dad is a Lutheran pastor. Yeah. Like there is, I don't know, there is such, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is a wonderful, wonderful satire of that. So we will see Daniel in just a moment. We are going to say, go take him out. Oh,
nailed it.
Yeah, nailed it. So there's so much to talk about, and actually, I'm saying this for the benefit of our studio producer, Ben. We're going to be talking a little bit about the pythons, but we're going to skip over a couple of things that we were going to do because we over-prepared. So we'll have to do Brits Part 2. But so Beyond the Fringe was the beginning of what many people refer to as the sort of satire boom in Britain. And I'm going to read this because it's very clear and concise. It was followed in 1961 by the opening of The Establishment, a comedy nightclub founded by Peter Cook, the founding of the satirical news magazine Private Eye, and the launch of a satirical television news program by Cambridge Footlights member David Frost entitled That Was the Week That Was. So just like in the early part of the last century, you know, America had vaudeville, which was family entertainment and very silly. The Brits had British music hall. So when the Beyond the Fringe came along, much like when Mort Saul came along here,
Independent Eye,
the Hungry Eye, etc.
Sorry, Hungry Eye.
Yes, exactly. It was, you know, a revelation for a lot of people. And David Frost created another satirical news program in 1966. I'm reading this, called The Frost Report. For it, he hired a number of Oxbridge grads, including John Cleese, Graham Chapman, Eric Idle, Terry Jones, and Michael Palin. The group worked together in various pairings on various other comedy programs, including Do Not Adjust Your Set, where they met animator Terry Gilliam. In 1969, they joined forces and the BBC premiered Monty Python's Flying Circus. And in just a minute, there's a lot of urban legend and a lot of different versions about like where that name came from. I will say that one of the versions that I heard was that that the producers of the BBC wanted to make sure they called them a circus because the 6 of them running around the set were like a circus. They decided to add the word flying in one version of what I've heard, because that made it sound less like an actual circus. And they thought that Monty Python was a funny name and sounded like a kind of slimy agent who would have brought them all together. So, but other names that they considered that did not make the cut are, Scott?
Owl stretching time, the toad elevating moment, a horse, a spoon, and a bucket, Vaseline review, and bun, whacket, buzzard, stubble, and boot.
And again, while none of those made the cut, they sort of show the sort of absurdity, the sort of absurd and surreal sense of humor that the Pythons brought in.
Yes.
And
which they got from the Goons,
yes.
which this is a bit of our contraction here tonight, but Harry Seacombe, Spike Milligan, and Peter Sellers had a seminal show on the radio called The Goon Show, and this was kind of the seed of inspiration for the Pythons. All of them cited as, so we'll have to do a special on the Goons.
That's right.
And
but
if
you listen to them, you can kind of see the sort of absurdist, surreal quality that comes from it. So what we're going to do though now is dive into an edited version of a Python sketch, edited for Zoom purposes. So this is the Argument Clinic. Oh, yes, sir.
Well, I'd like to have an argument, please.
Oh, certainly, sir. Have you been here before?
No, it's my first time.
I see. Do you want to have the full argument, or were you thinking of taking a course?
Well, what would be the cost?
Well, yes, it's £1 for a 5-minute argument, but only £8 for a course of 10.
Well, I think it's probably best if I start with one and see how it goes from there, okay?
Oh, fine. I'll see who's free at the moment. Mr. DeBakey's free, but he's a little bit conciliatory. Oh, yes. Try Mr. Barnard, room 12.
Well, thank you.
Oh, it's not me. Are we going straight to me?
No, we're going back. Let's go back.
Okay.
Knock on the door again.
Mr. DeBakey.
What do you want?
Well, I was told outside that...
Don't give me that, you snotty-faced heap of parrot droppings.
What?
Shut your festering gob, you tit. Your type makes me puke, you vacuous, toffee-nosed, malodorous pervert.
Well, look, I came for an argument.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is abuse.
Oh, I see. That explains it.
Oh, you want room 12A, next door?
I see. Sorry.
Not at all. Stupid git.
Come in.
Is this the right room for an argument?
I've told you once.
No, you haven't.
Yes, I have.
When?
Just now.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
Didn't.
Did.
Didn't.
I'm telling you I did.
You did not.
I'm sorry, is this a 5-minute argument or the full half hour?
Oh, just a 5-minute one.
Fine. Thank you. Anyway, I did.
You most certainly did not.
Now, let's get one thing quite clear. I most definitely told you.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
Didn't.
Yes, I did.
Didn't.
Yes, I did.
Look, this isn't an argument.
Yes, it is.
No, it's just a contradiction.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it is not.
It is. You just contradicted me.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you did.
No, 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 no.
You did just then.
No, no, nonsense.
No, look, this is futile.
No, it isn't.
I came here for a good argument.
No, you didn't. You came here for an argument.
Well, an argument's not the same as a contradiction.
Can be.
No, it can't. An argument is a connected series of statements to establish a definitive proposition.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is. This is just a contradiction.
Look, if I argue with you, I must take up a contrary position.
But it doesn't just say, no, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. Look, an argument is an intellectual process Contradiction is just automatic gainsaying of anything the other person says.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
Not at all.
Now look.
Thank you. Good morning.
What?
Betty, good morning.
Well, I was just getting interested.
Sorry, the 5 minutes is up.
What? That was never 5 minutes just now.
I'm afraid it was.
No, it wasn't.
I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to argue anymore.
What?
If you want me to go on arguing, you'll have to pay for another 5 minutes.
But that was never 5 minutes just now. Oh, come on, this is ridiculous.
I'm very sorry, but I told you I'm not allowed to argue unless you've paid.
Oh, all right. There you are.
Thank you.
Well,
Well, what?
that was never 5 minutes just now.
I told you I'm not allowed to argue unless you've paid.
I've just paid.
No, you didn't.
I did.
No, you didn't.
Look, I don't want to argue about that.
Well, I'm very sorry, but you didn't pay.
Aha! If I didn't pay, why are you arguing? Got you?
No, you haven't.
Yes, I have. If you're arguing, I must have paid.
Not necessarily.
I've had enough.
In my spare time.
I've had enough of this.
No, you haven't.
Oh, shut up!
Right, hold it right there.
What?
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Inspector Fox of the Light Entertainment Police Comedy Division Special Flying Squad.
Flying
Of the yard. I'm charging you two under Section 21 of the Strange Sketch Act.
The what?
You are hereby charged that you did willfully take part in a strange sketch that is a skit, spoof, a humorous vignette of an unconventional nature with intent to cause grievous mental confusion to the great British public. Right. Come on, dummy yard.
Hold it. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Inspector Thompson's Gazelle of the Program Planning Police Light Entertainment Division Special Flying Squad.
Flying
Good. Now, I'm arresting this entire show on 3 counts. 1, acts of self-conscious behaviour contrary to the Not in Front of Children Act. 2, always saying it's so-and-so of the yard every time the fuzz arrives. And 3, and this is the cruncher, offence against the getting out of sketches without using a proper punchline act.
And now for something completely different.
Yes. There are obviously so many more Python sketches we could do if we could do silly walks and we could do all kinds of and have dead parrots. But I am grateful to you both for
Cheese shop.
for cheese shop. I know so many. And you know what? Actually, I think we are going to. There's so much more. We need to do a part 2 of this because we totally overprepared. We're going to close tonight by, first of all, we're going to say goodbye to Daniel for right now, just for right now. Wait.
Yeah.
There we go. And I just want to talk about, if it was, so the Pythons were the 70s, Beyond the Fringe was the 60s. In the 80s, there was this whole new crop of Oxbridge students who came in who did so much amazing work, including Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie, Emma Thompson, who was in the Footlighters with them, and from Oxford, Rowan Atkinson. And Rowan Atkinson, most people know from Blackadder, Mr. Bean. But he has these astonishing solo shows where he plays all kinds of different characters, including the devil himself. And we're going to turn it over to Tony to take us home with the devil himself.
Hello. It's nice to see you all here. Now, as the more perceptive of you have probably realized by now, this is hell. And I am the devil. Good evening. But you can call me Toby, if you'd like. We try to keep things informal here, as well as infernal. That's just a little joke of mine. I tell it every time. Now, you're all here for eternity. Ooh, which I can hardly need tell you is a heck of a long time. So you'll all get to know each other pretty well by the end. But for now, I'm going to have to split you up into groups. Will you stop screaming? Thank you. Now, murderers over here, please, thank you. Looters and pillagers over here. Thieves, if you could join them. And lawyers, you're in that lot. Thank you very much. Fornicators, if you could step forward. My God, there are a lot of you. Could I split you up into adulterers and the rest? Male adulterers, if you could just form a line in front of that small guillotine in the corner there. The French, are you here? If you'd just like to come down here with the Germans, I'm sure you'll have plenty to talk about. Okay. Atheists. Atheists over here. Please, you must be feeling a right bunch of nitwits. And finally, Christians. Christians, yes, I'm sorry. I'm afraid the Jews were right. If you could come down here, that'd be really kind. Thank you. Okay, right. Well, are there any questions? Yes. No, I'm afraid we don't have any toilets. If you read your Bible, you might have seen that it was damnation without relief. So if you didn't go before you came, then I'm afraid you aren't going to enjoy yourself very much. But then I believe that's the idea. Okay, well, it's over to you, Adolf, and I'll catch you all at the barbecue.
So good.
That is one of my favorites of all time. And you have a Rowan Atkinson. You talked about remembering Rowan Atkinson from
Secret Policeman's Ball.
Oh yeah.
In the 80s, they put the Secret Policeman's Ball and the Secret Policeman's Other Ball on VHS, and those were benefits for Amity. Not Amity. Amnesty International.
Amityville Park was a weird cross.
Amity International. They did a sketch. Peter Cook was in it, but a whole lot of these comic actors. And I believe Alan Bennett wrote this sketch, and it's about this cult at the end of the world, or there was a leader of a cult who was predicting the end of the world. And they all had their shirts kind of pulled up around their heads like this, and they looked silly. And Peter Cook was making these pronouncements about what was going to happen at the end of the world. And he said there would be a mighty wind. And Rowan Atkinson's character, his only line was, "Will this wind be so mighty as to lay low the mountains of the earth?" Peter Cook would not understand that question. He would pretend he couldn't. He made him say it over and over, and Rowan Atkins had to keep saying that line over and over, and every time he said it, it got funnier. It was
so good. It is, I think, a big part of the appeal of this kind of humor is this incredible conflagration of high and low, where you have these brilliant, educated people that can talk about Thomas Aquinas and Euripides, and at the same time are incredibly silly and dumb, and just like the two of those things together make an intoxicating liquor. It's just so good.
Yeah.
Well, I am going to invite Daniel Frederick back onto the screen because we totally overprepared. So there'll be more of these things, more things to come. But I just want to say thank you so much to Tony and Daniel for being our guests tonight.
Yes.
Our producers, our studio producer has been Ben Levan. Our in-house producer has been Lily Greer. Our sponsor, as always, I've put on pants for this, is the adorable pug Vito Child, who on behalf of dogs everywhere says, "I'm so glad you're home." Please join us next week for a Put on Pants when we're going to be talking about the history of comic improv, and we'll have more guests. In the meantime, be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, and we'll see you next time.